Yes, 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 yes. Go ahead, it's on record. Did you set this up down here?
Hotel family, my name is Brother Ray. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club. We meet here every other Wednesday in honor of Amos Wilson, the late attorney at war, Walter Maddox, Minister Khaled, William Mackey Jr., our late brother Hassan, Louis Ray Rivera, El-Haj Malik Shabazz, Brother Gil Noble, Professor Simmons, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, and all the historians, Leola Maddox, and in honor of Leola, who had an old car. Hello, Sister Gilmore, how you doing? Miss Leola Maddox had an old car and she drove from Teaneck, New Jersey, all the way to the United African Movement because she believed in bringing people together. She believed in having lectures with speakers. So we never want to forget Sister Leola. We never want to forget Big Harold. We never want to forget Runoko Rashidi. We never want to forget Ivan Van Sertima. So we meet here so these people could be remembered. Now for the people that's coming in from the Zoom, give yourself a great big hand. And for the members that's live, that still believe in coming out even though we had a mini snowstorm, that come out and support us. So we're going to bring the camera over to the Amos collection. And these books are to help Sababu and African World Info Systems continue the work of Amos. We have Blueprint for Black Power. We have Black on Black Violence, the Psychodynamics of Black Self-Annihilation in Service of White Domination. And as you see, black on black violence is still running rampant, and we are still totally controlled by the European. The psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat toward a reclamation of the African mind, Amos's classic, The Falsification of African Consciousness, issues of manhood in black and white, Louis Ray Rivera, Jazz in Jail, African-centered consciousness versus the New World Order, and I just picked up a book, Fidel and Malcolm X, essays, when him and Fidel met at that hotel in Harlem, and S.K. Damiani, Distorted Truths and the Bastardization of African Cosmology. So those are just some books we have for Sababu to continue the work of Amos. And we have them here for the people to buy. So I have some books in honor, and this is the book that I really, in honor of Louis Ray Rivera. And Louis Ray Rivera came to that when Professor Mackey left us, and he would come down here and he would speak, and we would walk him home, and he still would speak for another hour and a half, and he only lived right around the corner on Jefferson Avenue. So Louis Ray Rivera left us too soon, and he would always come down here, but this book is in honor of Louis Ray. So we have some other publications for the listening audience on Zoom to purchase. We never want to forget the great Dr. Ben. For Black History Month, Dr. Ben went beyond the call of duty. And there wasn't too many computers, and he used to always be at the UAM, so we have this book in honor of Dr. Ben, Black Man of the Nile. Also, Dr. Randy Short, Mastering Slavery, The Impact of Religious Slavery. So Dr. Randy Short, we have this book and he has a PhD, and he still don't have a job. From Washington, D.C., Dr. Randy Short, and he was a regular at the UAF. Also, the destruction of black civilization, great issues of a mighty race, and Dr. Chancellor Williams talks about all the mistakes we made as an African people in Africa and Agbo land, and the wars and the great armies. This is an excellent book. A lot of people think that we had it going on, but we fought wars and wars and wars that keep them dynasties going, but it was a lot of problems going on in Africa, so we want to salute Dr. Chancellor Williams. Also, in honor of Big Harold, honor of Louis Ray Rivera and Trust Graham, Max Dumont, Jews, God, and History. And in this book, a lot of historical facts that these Jews are talking about are made up and just pure out and out nonsense. So this book, God, Jews, and History, I want to thank Brother Trust and Louis Ray. The next book I have is African Slavery in Latin America and the Caribbean. I wind up picking this up, and it talks about slavery in the Caribbean nation, Caribbean countries, and Latin America. So it also ties in with this reparation movement, because you have to go again after the other countries. So this book is just a prerequisite on that. In honor of Cynthia McKinney, who ran for president and we didn't even vote for. When China sneezes from the coronavirus lockdown to the political, Cynthia McKinney did an excellent job with this publication. And we have another book, the Cynthia McKinney, How the U.S. Creates, what you know with that? How the U.S. creates shithole countries. So when Donald Trump makes these statements, you have to get this book on how the U.S. is behind these S-hole countries. Another book we have, you see weed shops all over the place. Everybody smoking medical marijuana. They selling this stuff. People going to the weed shop. They ain't even going to the liquor stores. Everybody is smoking this nonsense. Well, you can thank George Soros in his book, Dope Incorporated. This book talks about the legalization of medical marijuana, how everybody is smoking this crap and they're going crazy. They're just doing all kind of stuff to people when it's because of this weed. This ain't that weed that as soon as you smoke a joint, you start laughing and look for a big tuna fish sandwich. This is some different kind of stuff they got out there. And this is the man behind the curtain, the secret network of George Soros. And when you see all this stuff happening now that the Democratic Party has lost, family, buy this book, go on Amazon, get this book. Also, get The Shadow Party, how the Democratic Party and 60s radicals took control, Hillary Clinton, of the Democratic Party, and you'll read about George Soros and the evil empire. And this is another book on George Soros, or the best investor in the world, and now his son, Alex, is in control, so you have to read about these people. The Manchurian Candidate, the manufacturing of a president, the CIA insertions of Barack Hussein Obama by Wayne Mansfield. We have this book. And you can get all these books on Amazon and A Books. Dr. Scott Whitaker's book, Medicine, the causes and solutions to the problems that are getting us. This is Dr. Scott, and this book is an excellent book, and you can call him. He's out of Decatur, Georgia, and he's always on Darren Muhammad's program. Family. Instead of, they talk about Elon Musk. Well, this book right here is just the start. If you ever want to read about a person, you have to get the book. Now, I just picked this up, Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and the quest for the fantastic future. And when you want to know about a person, you have to buy the book. So pick up the book and read everything you can on Elon Musk and what's going on, and you will get a better understanding instead of listening to it. So last week, if you mistrust Graham, I got the book Queen Nzinga of Angola. And I didn't get into it yet, but Trust had this book and he was recommending it and I picked it up. So this is on a Trust Graham. He'll be back here next week for the Black History Month with part 2 of the Portuguese, Europe, and the slave trade. So, you know, everybody's talking about reparations and everybody's mad at what's going on, and people are getting mad at the government and why they doing this, and they taking up for the government in January 6th. But every time we ask for some reparations, and we have the books, we have the studies, the hangings, what happened to slavery, all the pictures that are in these books. This is Without Sanctuary, a pictorial of what happened to us, how they hung us. They had postcards. They invited everybody. They was cooking food, and they were frying us. And every time you turn around, it's another study while everybody else is getting money. Everybody else is getting money, so they never want to look at this book Without Sanctuary. Always another study that's going on. And it's a shame. The same government that everybody is standing up for and everything that's happening and what the new president has done and who he has in there, but they don't want to look at. The Democratic Party has messed up so bad they lost the election. And the same people that you're taking up for, when you ask them for some reparations, they say, we ain't giving you a damn thing. We got to do another study. So you sitting up there talking about what they're doing. Okay, so now, capitalism on a ventilator. This talks about all the money they made during the CO-19. I got another book, Deception, the Great Cover, the Great CO Cover-Up. And if you went into the hearings, you saw what was going on with Rand Paul, and I hope Robert Kennedy gets in. Another book, Vax versus Unvax. Another one by Robert Kennedy. The Truth About CO-19. Another book by Kennedy. And this is the blockbuster, The Real Anthony Fauci, and all the information is coming. Is being brought out, but all you got to do is read the book. The Wuhan Cover-Up. The books are here, and it tells you about the money thing. Now, I just picked this up, and this is supposed to be a blockbuster. The Medical Pharmaceutical Killing Machine. Fact findings could save your life. And I have to get into this book because a lot of things go on. Causes unknown. The epidemic of sudden death syndrome, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. And every time you turn around, you see somebody catching something and you don't know, but we have the pictures of the young athletes taking this. So this is a great big book, Edward Down. Down the CO-19 rabbit hole. Another book by Kennedy and the doctors. In honor of the irritated genie, we have his blockbuster, Jews Are the Problem, and then Jews Are the Problem Too, The Psychology of the Jew. Ayo Kamati has a 1-2 punch that's excellent. And this is another blockbuster. This is called The Pfizer Papers. This is the book that Pfizer wanted to withhold the information for 75 years. And under the Freedom of Information Act, they forced them to come up with the information on the testing and everything that's going on with the 19. Naomi Wolf. So this book you can get on Amazon. They have another book getting ready to come out. It's called the Moderna Papers. And under the Freedom of Information Act, these pharmaceutical giants have to provide the public with information on the medication and the vaccines that they want to give us. And it's very important that you watch the Kennedy hearings. And I hope he has an impact on it. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to read some events that you can log on to. Thorough Black Talk with Tad, Keisha, Ashe, Brother Blacksmith, Sister Mama, aka Marcia, and they have a few more new people on that program. That's one of the hottest shows on the East Coast. That's Thorough Black Talk, and it comes on YouTube every Thursday. They'll be on tomorrow, YouTube and Facebook.
What time? Also,
and that comes on at 8 o'clock. And our Philadelphia connection with Sister Empress Chi, Brother Lumumba, Brother New World, and all the good people. Brother Blacksmith, we come on every Saturday. That's Blog Talk Radio with Sister Empress Chi. And Saturday at 10:30 p.m., the number is 1319-527-6189. That comes on and you could tune in. I forgot the brother's name. Excellent brother, but we have a good program, and sometimes we be talking and it still be 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I want to thank Philadelphia and Sister Empress on that program. Our 1-2 connection, Darren Muhammad, State of the City. He comes out of Baltimore. Sometime he comes on Wednesday, Thursday, but the Saturday program, State of the City, is on TuneIn Radio and Facebook Live under Darren Muhammad. You got that, Sister Gilmo? So that's Darren Muhammad, and he gives you all the stuff that's coming down. He's a powerhouse brother. Excellent. So now we have another program every Tuesday at 3 o'clock p.m. and also at 7 o'clock. Dr. Aline, Your Immunity Project. He comes on at 3 o'clock, and then he comes on at 7 o'clock. So if you go into Your Immunity Project with Dr. Aline, he gives you a lot of information on health and also the chemtrails and the CO-19. So we want to thank Dr. Aline. Every Friday, our African Echoes family with Brother Trust Graham, who does the Black History Month. He'll be on the 19th, so you can watch part 1 on YouTube. Trust Graham and Brother Danny and True and them, African Echoes, come on every Friday at 8 o'clock. And if they on, they will put the chat, the numbers in the chat, and it's the same log on, and they be getting it live. They're doing the psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat toward a reclamation of the African mind. But not only that, they give you a 1-2 punch. Saturday, the Know Thyself Study Group with Brother True and the gang out of Asbury Park. They give you another study group coming on, and they're doing the destruction of black civilization. Brother Trust Graham is also the mediator of that powerful study group. So we want to thank them with that 1-2 punch. Dr. McIntosh had an excellent program on the Minefield, which comes on every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And he was getting into the Netflix Sigma on with Steph Curry and them and how they just disrespecting black folks. So it's hard when you don't want to follow what he's saying, and he had an excellent program. So that's Dr. McIntosh, Richard Dean Theodore, and the Minefield program. You have to tune in 10 o'clock on WBAI. And if we don't follow what he's saying, we ain't gonna never get no respect. Steph Curry knows he was involved with that movie, and he's not gonna do anything about it. So we want to thank the Semotap organization. Also, you go on YouTube and look at every program that the Mackey's group give on YouTube, and you can go into it and study it and come back and do your research. So that's what's happening. And Dr. Lewis! So ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot happening, but you gotta remember, everybody, they got this stuff going on now about a boycott. And in New York, when we try to get people to boycott Black Solidarity Day, we can't get nobody to participate in it. So now we're talking about some phony baloney boycott of these stores. And we don't even want to boycott all the foreigners that's in our community with these stores, and they run out of there every day with garbage cans full of money. And when Black Solidarity Day come on, we can't get nobody to participate. So you got to watch these people, and you're following a bunch of people that following a bunch of gatekeepers. So be very careful, very careful. And the bottom line, come on, Doc. The bottom line is, the Democratic Party done messed up so bad, and their gravy train has come to an end. And if you look at all the money that's being wasted, you will find out. So you got to watch yourself following that nonsense. So ladies and gentlemen, for Black...
I need 5 more minutes.
Okay, Dr. Lewis is getting ready.
I got to shut this thing off.
Yeah. So it's a lot of things happening. If you're not doing nothing, go into the programs that I just mentioned. You know, follow what's going on. But what's happening is that they're bringing up a lot of scare tactics. And I don't hear no other people crying about what's going on. Fulton Street got so many bicycles, so many bikes running around. And I asked a few of them, are you worried about Donald Trump? And they look at me like I'm crazy. So you just gotta be careful. They said, we ain't going nowhere. I was in Harlem, and the guy was delivering food, and I said, listen, do you think they're gonna send you back? He looked at me like I was crazy. He said, man, they ain't sending you back nowhere. So it's only us. It's only us, the prized possession of the Democratic Party. So just be careful on who you follow, because you're following some fools out there. And all of a sudden, a certain person, come on, Doc. So we're gonna get ready to come on Black History Month. Don't worry about it. And as Trust says, you do your own study, and you don't let nobody dictate what goes on in your history. Black History Month is 12 months a year, 365 days. And if you're just gonna wait for 1 month, you're out of your mind. And that's one of the reasons of the study group. The study groups go on. Leola Maddox came every Wednesday. And you would beg people to come to a lecture. Come listen to Leola, come to UAM. Come to the lecture. And you couldn't get nobody to come to the lecture. Mention Donald Trump, and everybody got a goddamn word to say about him. So you gotta give him credit. At least you know what you get. So Dr. Lewis is getting ready to come on. And he's going to give a lecture on the Sahel region and Africa on the move. Word out on the street is they are opening up tomato factories, and a lot of people in Africa are working in the factories. The French is having a hard time controlling what's going on. So Black History Month is not only in America, it is also globally. So, Dr. Lewis is going to come on, and then after this series, we're gonna have Dr. Lewis do another 10-part series on what's going on in Africa, those great dynasties, how the pyramids was built. That's coming in 2025. So Trust is gonna be coming in on the 19th, and then we're gonna have Keisha coming in. We're gonna have Dr. Munderson. So we're gonna bring back the Irritated Genie. Trust is gonna come back. So this is just the start of what's going on. So, you know, get your popcorn and get your peanuts, because a lot of things is happening, and don't be getting scared on everything that's happening, because what it is what it is. And when you look at all the waste that's happening in government, you wonder where your tax money was going. You know, Doc, I'll give them out. Just put them on there and I'll give them out. I'll give them out, Doc. Just put them there, I'll give them out. Come on up. Okay. I sent it to all right. Just come on in and I'll send both back. This way we can start. So, ladies and gentlemen, we put an extra lecture on for Black History Month. Give a great big hand to Dr. Lewis, and he's going to straighten out everything he's doing, put it on there, and I'll give it out, and let's let him roll. And you can talk while you're picking everything up. I'll send it to him again.
Okay, good evening to the African community. I'm presently in New York City at Mackey's 2-3 lecture series, and I want to give my appreciation to Ray, his family, and all of his support mechanism for making it possible for African people to come to talk to you, to make presentations. And the beauty of the lecture series here is that you have people from the community who have information on different areas as it relates to African people globally, nationally, and right in our local communities. Every presenter and all of the individuals who are here who ask questions and makes comments, all of it is equally important, because what it does is contribute to our understanding of what it is that we have to do where we are. Some of us, when you hear the lectures and they talk and the answers, are dealing with history of African people on the continent and what they have done, which is very, very important. As we discussed the last time that we were here, in terms of the dating of certain things that relate to African people and other people. And we cleared up that issue about anyone being asked to independently date something, as if anybody here living can independently date it. And we also dealt with the question of, that was asked about Dr. Ben and Amos Wilson in reference to Dr. Ben taking African people to Egypt and money being spent in Egypt rather than some of that money staying in the United States. And the explanation was given that the reason that Dr. Ben and others decided to take tens of thousands of African people, specifically to Egypt and then Sudan and Ethiopia, was because he wanted to help African people understand what African people have done globally and how African people have civilized the world, to get a broad picture of our contributions. So everyone brings some information to the table, and the information that we present isn't to be judged, this is better than this is better. It's because we're giving ourselves information. And then some individuals might say, well, how can I use this information? We give it to you. And you begin to figure out how you can use it. You talk to other people. All the information is important. It isn't that if I have this information and I can't make money off of it, or if I can't do certain things with it, you have to understand we're here to bring a global picture so that we understand who we are here, understand who we are globally, and understand what we have done. The presentation that I'm going to make today, as I indicate to you usually, is information that I'm interested in terms of what I want to report on. So I complement it to other individuals who come to lecture you, others who you have seen on internet and others. So take what I have and everyone else that presents have in value to say, this is important for me to use the best way that I can. It has nothing to do with this information is better, that information. That doesn't exist. Everyone has a different way of making a presentation. No particular method is better than the others. I choose to make the presentation by giving something physical for the audience here and for others to obtain, so that you can pick up, walk away with information that I have had time to look up. The same way I come here, presenters, Dr. Munderson and others, they present a certain aspect. You take that in and you use it. So what we're doing is doing building blocks on information to help you in your daily life. One of the things to me that's most important, they say, what value are you getting out of this? How can I use this? So the way I think is the most important aspect of African people now, in the past, and in the future is the continuity of the race, if you want to use that term, continuity of the population. And so what is he talking about? And I make the analogy, in nature, the way nature, what you call nature, has been presented, whatever created it, is you have to undergo or participate in an activity that will contribute to your kind, this human being, whether it's a flower or a plant, to be here in the next generation, in the next generation, in the next generation. So you're saying that, well, when someone talks about the pyramids or temples or anything else, why is that important? Because if those Africans did not participate in a certain type of behavior, you would have never had those pyramids. You would never have professors come and talk to you about these pyramids and temples. So a young man asked me one time, he said, these billionaires, these millionaires in the society, they really make the country in the society. What do you think? And I said, in my opinion, the most important element in any society, human or other society, is the woman. It's the female principle, aided by the male principle. He looks at me and said, what are you talking about? I said, okay. Let all of the people on earth today, they say they're 8 billion, however they count it. And let human beings, like other animals and plants, have all of the sex, the sex they want, whatever that means. But in having the sexual intercourse and having the sexual activity, you cannot produce children. You cannot produce children. What are you talking about? Let that happen. And that of the 8 billion people that they say are living today, statistically, every one of the 8 billion people so-called living on this earth will be dead in 100 years plus. There'll be no more human race. Oh boy. Yeah, so that means the man and the woman. The woman, the female component, is the most important in any society. Not a handful of men running around with pieces of paper of how much billion they are, with is on the, which is just in their checkbook. See what the world would look like if you didn't have any children. That's what's important. Having families, having children. So that we, African people, will be here for the next 100 years, and the next 100 years, and the next 100 years. So when Professor Munderson teaches you about the temples and stuff, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years, your African people were doing their job. Not only building, but making babies. That's how important African people are, and how important the female component is. So don't let anybody try to measure your worth by how much money they have or what piece of paper they have. The 4 things that I live by, and I teach my children, I convey it, and I always say it. There are 4 things. 1, life. So what are you talking about? I say to them, try waking up dead. You got to be alive. Oh, I didn't understand that. So the first thing is you got to be alive for that day. The next thing after being alive, you want to be as healthy as you can be, whatever that means. I get that from what I've seen over the years in nursing home and stuff. People of different ages, they can't walk, they can't talk, they can't hear. They are there, but they're not functioning. So you want to be alive first. Second, you want to be healthy for that day to participate, to take care of your children, change the diapers, or whatever you're doing. The third thing I always say is, or ask, what are you going to do with the time that you have for that day? Make it as productive as whatever you call productive. And then the 4th thing is protect your reputation at all costs. Whatever that means, protect your reputation at all costs. So it's very important. In the presentation, I have 2 sheets of paper. And the handouts for those who are here can take it. Those who want to use it for further references, or if they want to read or check the information, is here. But for those who are not physically present, to pick up this paper so that you can refer. That's why we say it. The presentation, I like giving out information. It's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages, and followed by 3. So what's going on? The pages are here to not be a high professional scholastic analysis. It's to make a point. So you'll see on the last, there are 2 handouts. On the 3rd handout, you will see this picture. And then you will see a second set of pictures and a third set of pictures. So obviously, if you have a 12-page handout and 3 of the pages are just pictures, then it cuts it down. And in this particular case, the reason that I included this last handout, which we will do, is because it illustrates to you what happened in the United States after World War II and what they call the Bretton Woods Conference. Because when we finish the end of this, we will find out the importance of the Bretton Woods Conference. So I wanted to put this in your hand. Okay, now let's go through quickly what's in the 7 or 8 page handout. Some of the handout I'm going to read, and some of the handout it's for reference for you to have in your hand to do further study. So the presentation is designed to be completed in 30-35 minutes, which will give us time to think about it, question and answers. Okay, now, first page is a map of Africa. And in this map, they give a map here. And then you will see different states. Now this is a map that I produced, but it also comes from one of the young ladies who have given me a lot of maps in order to help in the presentation. And what this map shows is what is called Africa. North, south, west, and east. They don't teach geography anymore. In the Board of Education of the city of New York, I don't know about other places, the high school and the junior high school students have no books. Nothing. So that's telling you what they're doing. So the people say, what's important about geography and everything else is critical. So here's a picture. And in this picture, you see this shape. There's another picture of Africa in a comparison. You can put the United States, Big China, Australia, and Europe in here. So they never give you a map to show all of the countries. They give you a map that shows Africa about the size of the United States, because they don't want you to see that it's 4 times the United size. That area that we have been zeroing in, the Sahel nation, on your map is in yellow. And it encompasses the country of Senegal, Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, Chad, Sudan, and Eritrea. This strip is bigger than the United States. So if you pick up a map or whatever you say, this is bigger than the United States. About close to 1 million people live in this area. And people say, what do they look like? Look in the mirror. That's who lives in this area. And the reason we had concentrated on the Sahel was because this area, this country called Mali, Burkina Faso, and Nigeria, broke away from a traditional African group called ECOWAS. And why did these 3 countries break away from the organization called ECOWAS? ECOWAS is one of the 5 major organizations that Africa put themselves in. Later on, when we go in more detail, they broke away because ECOWAS is controlled. It's an African organization, but 80 or 90% of the money that goes in for investment comes from the United States, Europe, and the EU. This is a remnant of colonialism, which they're getting rid of. So maps are critically important, so they don't teach it for some reason. We're going on to the second page. The second page of the 8, I always like to include Smedley Butler's, what he said about intervention. And the reason that I repeat it only takes 2 minutes to read, is very critically important, because Smedley Butler was a white American who joined the Marines, and he rose to general. And he comes in around the time of the late 1880s and 90s, up until the 1930s or 40s. And why is it very important? Because he tells you in 10 minutes that I'm going to read, he's telling you exactly how the United States government functions around the world at the time of 1880 up to 1940. Nobody knows, not nobody, they don't teach the history. Individual asked me, how come black folks, an adult, can't get loans and everything else like others in the United States? I said, because you forget the history. You forget that this is not your country. That the English 13 colonies started with slavery. They first brought over the slaves that they had conquered in what would be Great Britain now. The Anglo-Saxon and Germanic tribes that conquered England, and they enslaved the Irish and the Wales and stuff. They brought them over, the English colonies, the 13 English colonies. They brought over enslaved white people, but they couldn't do the job. They brought over then enslaved Irishmen. Couldn't do the job, so then they started to go to Africa to get skilled and unskilled people who built this country. Okay. So Smedley Butler, when you read it, he's telling you with the time, what countries that the United States and what they did. Why? Because at the end of the presentation, we're going to read what the United States has done and still doing what Smedley Butler is doing. Okay, so let's read it. It's called Smedley Butler on Intervention. Excerpts from a speech derived in 1933 by Major General Smedley Butler. He was very angry at the United States government because the military had fought, so many white people had fought, and they never gave them their pensions, they mistreated them. So he was very angry. So he says, war is a racket. This is a concise, perfect illustration of what the United States was doing globally. The United States is just beginning to get out of what you call America. They're conquering Hawaii. They're participating in the opium wars against China. They're beginning to invade and conquer the Caribbean. So he's at that period. War is a racket. A racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seemed to the majority of the people. Now he's talking about the people of the United States, including the African people. You're part of what he's talking about. Only a small inside group knows what it's about. It is conducted for the benefit of a very few at the expense of the masses. Exactly how the U.S. government runs now. Donald Trump, they say, before he left, the first signed off with Congress to a $4 trillion tax break for the richest white families and the richest white corporations. Okay, so that's what he's talking about. The country doesn't run for you. He says, I believe in an adequate defense at the coastlines, coming down to the third. I would go to war again as I have done to protect some lousy investment of the bankers. There are only two reasons why he would go to war. So he's getting a hint. He says, I'm going around the world conquering for bankers. The fourth line, there is a trick in the racketeering bag that the military gang is blind to. It has its fingerprint. See on the radio, the Sahel is bad, Russia is bad, your fingerprint. To point the enemy and its muscle men to destroy. That's when the United States goes out and destroys. And its brain men to plan war preparation. So he's telling you about the Pentagon, the United States planning the war. He's telling you about who the war is against, and he's telling you who's profiting from it. That's why it's very important to plan to, and the big boss, super nationalist capitalist. In the United States, when the English came here, the 13 colonies, there were three classifications of these so-called 13 colonies that you call the British colonies. There was the royal colony, which means that anything, the colonies, when the English came and they cut up the land, and they said, this colony is a royal colony. Any and everything that of wealth that comes out of it has to go to enrich the king and his boys. Then there was the private colonies. Those colonies he gave to his friend. Whatever you can exploit, whatever riches is there, you keep. And then there was, they called the corporate colony. That's where the beginning you get the corporation, that you formulate a country. And then the corporations come and they run the country. So they started way back then. It may seem odd for me, a military man, to adopt such a comparison. Truthfulness compels me. I spent 33 years and 4 months in active military service as a member of this country's most agile military force, the Marine Corps. I served in all commission, ranked from second lieutenant to general. And during this period, I spent most of my time being a high-class muscleman for big business. For Wall Street. And for the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer for the gangsters of capitalism. That's what he's telling you about the corporation. So let's don't talk about the corporations of the United States, the banks, Congress, and the president deindustrialized the United States and moved everything primarily over to China so that those handful of people would have access to cheap labor and big markets, and the hell with the rest of the country. That is the beginning, 1970 and 80. That's the beginning of the financial collapse that you see now in the massive homelessness. Okay. I suspected that it was just part of a racket at the time. Now I am sure of it. Like all of the members of the military profession, I never had a thought of my own until I left the service. This last part, he's telling you now specifically. And when we in there, you're going to see the repeat. He's telling you what the United States did. I made Mexico, especially Tampico, safe for the American oil interests in 1914. We stealing all the oil. We took Mexico, we took Texas and all of that for the oil. He's telling you that's what he was down there, killing Mexicans, stealing their oil, like they were still trying to do in Venezuela. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National City Bank boys to collect revenue I helped in the raping of half a dozen Central American countries, republic for the benefit of Wall Street. The record of racketeering is long. I helped purify Nicaragua for the international banking house of Brown Brothers in 1909, 1912. I purified Nicaragua and the internationally brought brought light to the Dominican Republic for American sugar interests in 1960, and China helped to see the Standard Oil win its way. While they were helping to see Standard Oil steal from China, the United States participated in the first Opium War against China. It was the UK and the United States. The second Opium War was the UK, United States, and France, trying to force heroin on, and that's when these big rich white families brought heroin to the United States, primarily on the East Coast. And Trump wants to get rid of heroin. The banks survive over it. Smedley Butler on intervention. You go on the internet, Smedley Butler on intervention. Here's another form. Go to the next one. I'm not going to read from this because I'm going to give you the link and you read it. Study, U.S. Congress literally doesn't care what you think. I'm going to read just the top part, 1 minute, and then you do your reference. You Google this study, U.S. Congress literally doesn't care what you think. It's there on the internet. Professor Martin Gillen, Princeton University, and Benjamin Page, Northwestern University, looked at more than 20 years worth of data to answer a simple question. Does the government represent the people? The study took data from 2,000 public opinion surveys and compared it to the policies that ended up becoming law. They compared what the public wanted to what the government actually did. What they found was extremely settling. The opinion of 90% of the American people essentially is of no value or input. When you look up the thing, you'll get further details on what does it mean. It basically, summing up, is that you ask the average person, what type of government do you live under? Most people can't tell you. Is it a democracy? No. Democracy, as is defined, is when the people vote directly. This is a republic where your representatives who represent you vote for you. It is these representatives in the city, state, and in Congress, as they explain to you, that take donations from these corporations, bribes. And it's these donations that Congress, from these Congress people, they write the laws for the benefit of the big corporations.
Exactly.
As they said, it's a vicious cycle of legalized corruption. That's what you have now. They define fascism as the combination of private corporations and government working together to run domestic and foreign policy. That's what you have now. So you have a fascist country. You have a republic because you have these people renting you. You have a fascist country by their own definition. And you have a, how do I call it? Constitutional dictatorship. Trump came on the first day, he signed executive orders. Executive orders are things that the president is able to say. It comes as laws. He didn't write those. So 100 executive orders, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So executive orders are written by the President of the United States. It becomes law and it runs you. It's a king. So you living in a republic, a fascist state, and a constitution. You have a piece of paper, constitutional dictatorship. We go to the next page. The top of the page says quantitative easing. Let me read what quantitative easing is because it tails in on what we just read. So now we on the 4th page of the handout. We only got 4 more pages to go. Quantitative easing, I use it to illustrate how the country runs. Quantitative easing as defined by the white people who run the country. And no Jews and no Christians, white people. Ain't got no black Jews running the damn thing here.
That's right.
Don't tell me about those Jews. Quantitative easing, defined by the white people who run the country. It says, if you have it, money policy of the central banks buying financial assets to stimulate economic activity. Second, they lend to corporations at 0% interest rate. Your credit card is 30%, but they get 0% interest rate.
Corporations get 0.
These are called zombie companies. Why? The zombie companies are indebted businesses that can only cover operating costs and interest payment on their loans, but not pay their debt. So what a zombie company is this? They say 1/3 of all your big corporations are zombie companies. This company A is running. I don't know, could be auto companies, the banks and stuff. Whatever they're supposed to be selling, they're not making. I remember Brother Muhammad that used to be with us. He always said to me, the United States is going to make what? And sell it to who? There's only 3 things the United States has to sell on the global market. According to them, Dr. Lewis, Arthur Lewis, whatever you want to call me, I'm not making up. This is their statistics. Military weapons.
Guns.
And they are inferior. How do you know? Because we went through it a year or so ago, where the Houthis from Yemen was bombing the oil field of Saudi Arabia. And protecting the oil fields of Saudi Arabia was the United States anti-missile battery called a Patriot. Didn't stop a damn one. Something's no good. Okay? I didn't say it, they said it. Military weapons, services. Everybody can give you services. And oil. Fracking oil. Fracking oil is not very good because it has minute particles in it. Okay, that's what this country. I don't recall whether we went through the industrialization of China. I remember where that presented. But it came in 2 phases. After the Chinese Civil War in 1949, China was the same state as if you go to any Central American or any African country that had been under colonial rule. Nothing. So Russia, from 1949 to 1970, industrialized China, put down the railroad, put in factories and everything, brought it up to a certain level. 1970. They brought it, they started 1949, 1970. Where did China get all of this high industrialization? It was transferred from Europe, some from Japan, and mostly from this country. Where did the white people get it from? They got it from Africa during the so-called slave trade and others. So these zombie countries, I have a zombie company. I don't make anything that anybody wants to buy. But because I'm white and I'm in the clique, I'm bankrupt. So what I do is I go, make up some bonds, worthless bonds, and I go to my friend who's in, what you call the people who print up all the money? Treasury, and say, look, can you put into my account $50 billion? So he's my friend, so he transferred $50 billion of the money. And he says to me, what are you going to give me in collateral? Bonds. He knows and I know that these bonds are worthless. I mean, you got a company, you know you're not making any profit, you can't pay your bills, but you're going to be given a $50 billion bond, money, while at the same time you and I are paying back the IRS from these laws, and they're killing you. 30% interest on your credit card, and the third of the company that you think are worthless, they're getting billions of dollars. Because those companies, they all went out, they all outsourced. Okay. So that's what your zombie company, 1/3 of all companies in the United States. Okay. Over here, below that, it says U.S. Stolen land, stolen people. That's how the company. So you ask the question, I saw a flash where Trump is worth $8.8 billion. And then I asked everybody, and I'm only repeating what I read on these YouTube, where you go to research on this video. You know where you go to research. I didn't put it there. So if you don't like it, then you ask the people who put it there. So if you want to do a quick survey of Donald Trump, and then I'm not against Donald Trump, because he said those Central Park people should be hanged and stuff. He just said out of his mouth what they all feel and practice. So he's just a good old boy like everybody else. So I said at a discussion, I said, take all of your billionaires. Trump, who else?
Elon Musk.
All of them.
Bezos.
You ask them. They never talk about their grandparents. When I talk to white people, I said, I'm an African American. The American part is my citizenship, which they can take away anything, but the African part, I'm denoting where I come. But I said to them, y'all never talk about Irish American, Italian American, all American. What you look back on there, go back on the TV and start looking at all the pictures that come in. 150 million Europeans left Europe starting 1850 up to 20. Where did they go? And what were they running out of?
And they ain't going back.
So what it says, and whoever put it there, is that Trump's grandfather left what would have been Germany. There's no Germany because these countries didn't exist. He left, he followed the track from what it would now be Germany, went to UK, got on a ship and came to the United States. They say he stayed downtown, Stuyvesant Town or something, with his sister, who's 2 years older. He came from that area of Germany at age 16. They said he stayed 2 years in downtown as a barber. Then he went west. California.
Go west, young man.
California, Washington and stuff. What was there? Where did he make his money? Hoteling? Prostitution.
And liquor.
And heroin.
Drugs.
Why? Because the heroin was brought from India, from China. It was introduced all through there. So most of the heroin that was brought here was brought by whoever white businessmen you want to say, and it was here that he made his money there. I didn't say whether it was legitimate or not. He made his money.
Yeah.
They say when you look at the literature, and it's nothing against Trump, because when you look at every single one of them, you ask Rockefeller, when you got off the boat, what did you bring with you? We know the clothes weren't too good. We know you had to be fumigated. What did you bring? So I surmise that they don't talk about their grandparents because what is there to talk about? What did you bring? Ask any of these millionaires being there. So his grandfather comes back, get into some, they say he went back to Europe and wanted to stay there, but I'm going to repeat what I said, what I read, but the government looked at his record and said, you're a draft dodger. You left here illegally because you didn't want to be conscripted. You can't stay here.
Exactly.
So he comes back. His grandfather gets into real estate. And now everybody want to jump on his grandfather and say, he's racist, he didn't want black people. So all you have to do is just go and you look and you read, you say, oh. On the next page after this, you see over here a little reference. The color of law. The color of law. A forgotten history of how the United States government segregated America. So why are you blaming his grandfather? That was the rule there. And people ask me to do a history of black United States of America history against black people. I'm not no specialist. Anybody just pick it up. When did they bring us here? How long have we worked here? You mean to tell me you forgetting the fact that this country wouldn't have been the country that you need to ask me? You have to be insane. It's there. You just do the homework. The Constitutional Convention, 1 and 2. See, because I'm no smarter than anybody else. But it's what you want to put your time in, to put the pieces together to understand. I'm trying to understand what our problem is. We're African people stuck here. The young lady that I spoke to gave me these maps, some of the maps. We talk briefly about us in America. We should have our own peace. But was it Muslim? Who's running the Muslim now? Somebody got to help me. Huh? Who's the head of the Islam? Farrakhan, I didn't say originated, and others approached the United States. Remember when they were asking for 5 states? Specifically 5 states. Do we have 5 states? Okay. You go to the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, what you call Russia. It's mainly run by white folks. Put together like many countries in conquest. There are at least 20 distinct ethnic groups in Big Russia. Every distinct ethnic group have their own landmass. They have their own president, total structure. They run themselves. And the white Russians, to Putin, they control the national security of the state. But every distinct ethnic group got their own landmass, their own president and everything, functioning totally independent. The history will show that the Soviet Union offered to the white German Jews a piece of land that they could live autonomously. They refused it. So that's why we don't have it. What happened after the Civil War? Half of us got caught, stuck on the plantation as sharecroppers. The other half went along the Atlantic Ocean coast and got land, and the other half we scattered, what you call Wall Street, right? You look at what happened. All of the land that was given is gone. All of the progress we made out west and stuff was destroyed. The people who are running this country, white people, and I'm not saying anything against them. Let's tell it the way it is. This is a white Anglo-Saxon Nazi country by the way it's structured, just like any other Germany, any other one, trying to masquerade as something else. But where's the African land? Where's the distinct land given back to the indigenous people? It doesn't exist. And it's not going to exist. The indigenous people from the United States and Canada state that in about 300 years they're going to retake the country, this area. So whoever of us around, let's see if we can verify it. So when Trump signed off, like all the presidents, giving $4 trillion, tax-free, big corporations and big this. Remember his inauguration? If you looked at his inauguration, he thanked Africa. He said, "I thank the what he said, black African people, black people. I forgot the word black or African and Hispanic for helping me get here." The countries that where you see where it was the inauguration, 99% white. If the country's at least half non-white, why is everybody 99% white there? And you know who they are, the upper class, just like during slavery or any time else. So just a few things for you to think about your fellow white Americans. People say, why did they come and get something? I worked in one of the hospitals, emergency area, with two white Russian doctors about 25, 30 years ago. And they said, we just got here 2 years and I have a home and this and that. I said, this is not right the way they treat people. So you find out whether or not what's your stand as it relates to white people, not one-to-one. Stolen land, stolen people, that's the United States. James Baldwin, an open letter in 1970 to Angela Davis when she was in handcuffs. And he said to Angela Davis, you can read the whole thing, but I just took out the most important part. You would think that the sight of you being chained would cause a lot of consternation and etc. This is not fair. So James Baldwin said to her, Angela Davis, James Baldwin, open letter, 11/19/1970, Angela Davis in handcuffs. Quote, I took out the most important part. While white Americans take refuge in their whiteness, they will allow millions of other people to be slaughtered. So if you're thinking that you're going to get help, you speak to this thing here. And I always mention, I keep going back and forth, I'm going to repeat it because we're halfway through the presentation. I'm going to keep saying it. When we were in the auditorium in Hunter, WBAI, my wife and I, and about a handful of people, maybe 500, 1,000 people in that auditorium. And Michael Moore and Cornel West was on stage talking, blah, blah, blah. So Michael Moore said, and I keep repeating it, for you to think, Michael Moore said to Cornel, let me tell you how we think. I'm going to ask a question only white people to answer. He said, the question was, why do we white people find it necessary to mistreat black people? The answer was dead silence. He asked the second time, why is it do we find it necessary for white people to mistreat black people in this country? No answer. He asked it the third time. What I wanted to say to Michael Moore was, you're basically right, but the Irish didn't do it to him. If you wanted to be more specific, who did it to us? Because the Irish was not to exonerate them. So I always say that. Why? He said, because they know how the system works, and they know that it works completely against you, and they accept the benefit. I'm not saying anything negative, I'm just trying to ring the bell for you to remember. Then Chris Hedges, necessary to treat black people. Okay, Chris Hedges was with the Times, and one of them, they kick him out, so he traveled. He went into Slovakia, he went to, I forgot that area down there north. southeast of Europe, where the Slavic people and a number of them all lived together. And he was there when the United States bombed Serbia. Bombed Serbia. Because Serbia was connected with Russia. And he was there, when you listen to a lot of his speeches and stuff, he was there when, in Gaza. So he lived in Gaza. And he knew what the United States and them were doing before Gaza. And then he was traveling, going to Iraq. And when he was in Gaza, he was told by his people, learn Arabic. Why? Learn Arabic. Okay, so he learned it. So I'm just reiterating many of the lectures that I watched on him, Chris Hedges. So he went to Iraq. Wherever he was captured by, who was the president? Saddam. They said he was
Chris Hedges?
Chris Hedges, yeah. He said he's been out there. He says, I've seen what the United States do to people. They said they were going to knock him off. You know what knocking him off with? Kill him. White man, what you doing here? He said, as soon as he spoke Arabic, that he did it. They cut him loose. People want to know, are you my friend or are you my enemy? So the fact he said that once when he spoke Arabic, they connected with him. So his people in Israel, Lebanon, Gaza, saved his life. So I'm going to use what he said at the end of one of his speeches, talks. He's up in Massachusetts and stuff, all white people. And he's talking about how the United States behaved internationally. And in the end of one, they asked him, are you an American? After what you saw, he hesitated. No, I'm not an American. Now you could say, well, he's still America, he got privileges. They push him to the point. Well, he don't want to be part of that. And this is what he said after one of his major presentations. So he said to the white people, I'm not a citizen. You are a citizen. I'm not part of what this country is. You are one thing. The country, the leaders of the country are totally different. So he wrote at the end of one of his writings, he said, I'm glad the era of the 200 to 300 to 400 years of white people running around the world, killing and murdering and maiming is going to come to an end, you know, as the world is changing. So this talk was just 10 years ago. And he said, hopefully it'll never happen again. Hopefully. He said, it won't happen again. I put in the word, hoping never. And this is what he said, the warning he gave you. White Americans and Europeans are Ice Age cave hunters with a suit and a beard. You better let it sink in. He's telling you, I'm warning you. We go to the next page as we winding down. 3 pages ago. Information is to give you this information as I presented it, so that'll be things that you can further do research on and we can discuss. The next page is titled, I didn't put a number, if you look at it, it's the post 9/11 wars have contributed to 4 to 5 million deaths. You have it? Now, on this sheet, we're going to talk about the behavior of the United States government from Trump, from, what's his name, guy's name? Clinton to Biden. To give you a more contemporary snapshot of what Smedley Butler said. These reporters are reporting on the United States' behavior on the globe. Because in one of the position papers of the United States, as they're going down, they said, we are not going to allow any country to bypass us, to be dominant. How the hell are you supposed to be dominant? You give away all your industry. You're not educating the population. You make inferior weapons, and you have nothing to sell on the open market. Okay. So this is, I'm going to read it. It'll take 5-6 minutes for those who hear and get it, to understand where you are. Post 9/11 wars have contributed to some 4 to 5 million deaths. After the United States government or whoever the hell blew up those, what you call them buildings? Windows. I didn't say they blew it up. The firemen said it was blown up. The firemen went in and they kept hearing the bombs go off. The excuse the United States would need to go over to North Africa and Asia to try to destroy the area so that their largest military base, which is Israel, could keep doing the work for the United States. So here, I'm going to read it. You can get this reference, or you can ask Ray Ray to give you a copy of this. Post 9/11 wars have contributed to some 4 to 5 million. Everything I read comes out of the internet from this book and this thing and that thing. You can read it. I'm not making anything. Brown University research, UN data, expert analysis calculate excess death. Presidents: Bill Clinton, from 1993 to 2001, 42nd president. George Bush, 2001 to 2009, 43rd president. Barack Obama, 2009 to 2017, 44th president. Donald Trump, 2013, 2017, 2021, 45th president. Joe Biden, 2021 to 2046. This lump sum of 5 presidents are responsible for what we going. Your best research in the United States say these guys, they're not responsible. It's the government. It's the people running the government. The president is just the face. So they got to take the blame. U.S.-led invasions of Afghanistan, Iraq, post 9/11, Syria, Libya, Somalia, Pakistan, Iraq, and Yemen. They attacked what you call the Middle East or Western Asia and North Africa. Why? Because there's so much oil there in many of the commercial waterways. Let's see the result that the Washington Press and the Brown University did what they did. Direct civilian death, 906 million. So they almost killed 1 million people, these 5 presidents under the United States, that they can figure, 1 million. Indirect deaths is 4 to 5 million. So the so-called expert statisticians say for everyone you could document that was killed directly, 4 to 5 died. So they killed at least 1 million, and 4 to 5, for every 1 million, you got 4 to 5 deaths. So for these 5 presidents, 5 million to 6 million people were killed by the United States under these presidents. I thought Iraq was what's the name? Iran is all of the jihadists in this world that attacked Syria and now was put there in North Africa. They were put there by the United States, France, and the rest of them, and they're pointing the finger. Everybody else is the bad guy, the jihadists. They're the only one that killed 5 million people in the last 15 years documented. Then we didn't even talk about Vietnam and all the other ones.
That's right.
So they killed 1 million directly, killed 5 million indirectly, displaced 38 million people got displaced. Put 38 million people to off the, okay. The economy, like they did to Iraq, see in Libya, the economy is destroyed, the environment is destroyed, the increased hunger, famine, malnutrition, destroy the water, violence, crime, infrastructure disruption, birth defects, pregnancy down, total social collapse. And you want to know why you live the way you live as black people in the United States? You're lucky you ain't get a good dose of this. You do get a good dose of it with the poison food and the poison water. You are being treated exactly like they treat them. Domestic and foreign policy.
Refrigerate fish sauce.
Total society cost 8 to 10 trillion of U.S. tax dollars from 1993 to 2024. 8 trillion. Where did that 8 trillion go? Where did the 4 trillion go that Trump gave? Government USA 2025. Now we're going to talk about a little bit about, you know, that the corporations in the United States. We know about the zombie. So let's look at the way the U.S. government is structured. Why it is said that the government is fascist if government, Arthur Lewis didn't say the government was fascist. They said it was, whoever they is, because they define fascism is that group, that the government working with large corporations to run a domestic and foreign policy. So while they're killing people on the outside, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, these are names of these big corporations.
They control everybody.
One, the largest shareholders of 88% of all S&P 500 firms. I wonder how that happened. Two, together those three are shareholders in 40% of all U.S. companies. I'm going to play the stock market.
Monopoly.
More than 40%.
I'm just using the figures that they say.
Exactly.
Together, shareholders in 40% of all U.S. companies. BlackRock to own 30% of all residential housing in the United States of America. You're living like any third world person around the world. Oh, we're living the best in America. Well, compare it to your life, the material standard of living of any industrialized country, you're on the bottom. So when, what's the name, Harris? What's the first name?
Kamala.
When Kamala Harris and...
Kamala Emhoff.
So what again?
Kamala Emhoff is her name.
Okay.
Married to
And Trump, yeah. She went with the winners. And Trump, well, campaigning, they were told 3 things you don't talk about. The first thing you don't talk about is business cycles. You don't want to have people talk about business, what's happening in business and stuff, but they don't want you to see what's really happening. These people control everything. And the 4 trillion tax, that's how these rich people stay rich and you get poor. The first thing, don't talk about business cycles. The second thing you don't talk about is income distribution. Why 5% of the white people own the country? So don't talk that. And the third thing, you can't mention BRICS. Then you would have to say to the American people, BRICS is a grouping of those countries that suffered under white colonialism, that's banding together to get away from the colonists. Wait now, what did Trump say? And Kamala Harris say? What they're trying to, Kamala Harris and Trump said, what they're trying to say here is corporations and the government paid off run a domestic and foreign policy. And in the domestic and foreign policy, the wealth, so-called wealth, who owns the land and got the more, is all in the hands of less than 5% of the population. And 95% of the population go to hell. That's what it means. And don't mention BRICS, because BRICS is Russia, China, India, South Africa, and Brazil. Then they added on Iran, Ethiopia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, and now Indonesia. So in other words, what is BRICS? It's a grouping of non-white countries. What do they have in common? They all were colonized by the United States and Europeans. And now they're blocking together, and you happen to be living in a dying white country. You don't want that kind of talk. United States major exports we mentioned was military exports, military equipment, oil shale, and services. The U.S. government structure, military, industrial, congressional complex, CIA, FBI, education, and media. That's who runs the country. 2 more pages and we finish. This page is called the League of Nations. You heard that, right? Now, the League of Nations is dated from 1920 to 1946. Why is that important? Because globally, after World War II, the United States is becoming a dominant power. The former colonists, Spain, US, Germany, they're going down. The colonists, those countries that colonized, you can't forget that. And then when you read it, you pick it up, it says it's an intergovernmental organization, 1920, 1944. It was a result of the Treaty of Versailles. These technicalities, it's not important that you understand that they were 19 from so it was the Treaty of Versailles. 6/29/1990. In the World War I. What's happened in World War I? Germany lost the war. The European countries, England, France are going down. The United States is rising. Who formulated the League of Nations? Who thought it up? France, Italy, Japan, the US, and UK. And who was the victim of this? Germany. So now these countries are going to gang up on Germany. And you see what it says here? Invited 13 neutral nations to join. Every one of these countries, when you look up the League of Nations, after World War I, 1918 to about 1946, you say all of these countries joined? No. It was a organization put together by France, Italy, Japan, UK, United States against Germany. And you see all of these lists of countries that are listed in the League of Nations? There are 4 countries that are African. 4. Let's look it down. The 4 countries that were African countries that sat down to sign the paper but didn't control a damn thing. These countries you see listed, the 41 countries, these countries up there say, look, you can all get in the club. We write the rules. You don't run a damn thing. And if you look at the list, here, almost every country was under the colonial rule of the English, the French, the United States. So you look at the countries and say all of these countries joined? No, they didn't join. They were asked to join by the Pistola. Read the countries. Belgium, Bolivia. Now these countries did not start the League. And why this is important, because later we're going to look at the UN in Bretton Woods. And you're going to find the same list of countries. But the people who run the organization, who started it, were the United States, France, and UK. It's those three. Click. Okay. Belgium, Bolivia, British Empire, Canada, Australia, South Africa. South Africa at that time was under white rule. It's not, that's an African country, but they were ruled by white African. New Zealand, India. India wasn't an independent nation. India wouldn't be independent for 1949. Big China, that's the nationalists. Cuba, Greece, Guatemala, Haiti, Honduras. What did all these countries have? They either South American, Caribbean country that was put on the list, but totally controlled by the United States. You understand? That's what's important. And when we go back the next time we do it, we're going to see the same structure in the UN and Bretton Woods. Italy, Liberia. Liberia is a colony of the United States. Okay, so you have, as an African country, Liberia under the United States. You have South Africa under white rule. Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Serbia, Czechoslovakia, Uruguay. The reason that I listed is so you could see, at that time, these countries were not independent. Everyone that you hear from Central America, South America, Caribbean was under the United States or one of the rule. The four countries that are listed here from Africa, you see them listed in the UN. They were colonies. You see them at Bretton Woods, they were colonies. That was Liberia under the United States. It was Egypt under the British. It was South Africa under whites. And the only independent was Ethiopia. The importance of this is to show you at that time, after World War I and World War II, United States, Britain and France were calling the shot as colonial masters over all of the rest of these countries here. And when we look at further one, you're going to see the same names and the same thing under the Bretton Woods and in the UN. You go to the next page. We're winding down. 2 more pages, then we finish. You see Bretton Woods? You see that, right? When you look at the names that listed here, same name that was here. Those countries, those 4 African countries are listed under the League. They just put it, we have our own problem. We just take 15 people to add the name. Okay? This same list of countries, you will see it under the League, you will see it in the UN. Who started the UN? The same group of countries. United States, France, and England, UK. They added on nationalists, China, that. And the same group of people, the same 3 countries. That's the importance of this. The same 3 countries that wrote the League of Nations, wrote the Bretton Woods, and wrote the United Nations. They all started by United States, France, and England. And this is what the BRICS and other countries are breaking down. So let's go here, in the last 2, let's read the Bretton Woods. And let's read what the Bretton Woods was. It was a conference, the Bretton Woods Conference, the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference. Who could start the United Nations? United States, France, and UK. They started it. They started the League of Nations and added you. You didn't have a damn thing. They started the UN, added your name. Who ran the UN? Who structured the UN? The same 3 countries. Who ran the Bretton Woods? The same three countries. So what we to get out of this is when you look at it, is for you to see the pattern that from after the World War I, there were three major institutions put in place. The League of Nations, created and run by United States, France, and the UK, and they added the names of all of the Caribbean and Central South American that were colonized. They created the UN, wrote all the rules and regulations, put themselves on all the committees. Who started the UN? United States, England, and France. Who ran it? Who put the names on? And the Bretton Woods, the importance of the Bretton Woods is, at that point, the British Empire was dropping. And people were forced to use the British pound. At that point, the United States is going to say, I'm the big guy. We're no longer going to use the British. We're going to use the US dollar. That's the Bretton Woods. And the short information about the Bretton Woods is that it was put together by the United States, France, and England. And what was the Bretton Woods? They tell you right here. The Bretton Woods was the United Nations. Right away when you hear United Nations, that's the US, that's France, and England. The United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference held at Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, up in the northern part of the United States. From July 1st to July 22, 1944, and there were 44 nations, the same nations, with delegates. And what was the importance of the Bretton Woods as we conclude? It was to establish the rules of the commercial relationship among the world. What did it say here? I took it directly from their thing. Establish the rules for commercial relationship among the United States, Canada, and Western Europe. You hear anything about Africa here? These white people, these Canadians, the United States, the Canadians, and Western Europe, United States, Canada, England, France. We got all these black Africans here. There's no other kind of African. We got all these black under us control. We got most of Asia as colonies. We got most of Central and South America as colonies. We got most of the Caribbean. So after World War I, up until present, those three colonial countries, United States, France, and UK, are putting together the League of Nations. They run it and put people's name on it. They start the UN to control you. And then they create the Bretton Woods. The white people sat down. United States white, Canada white, Western Europe white. We're going to make up the rules and regulations among us of how we're going to trade, how much you steal from here, how much you steal from here, and how much you steal from there. Okay. What came out of the Bretton Woods? You see on this area here, the monetary system, World Bank and IMF, that's what got most African and Asian countries locked down. How do you know? When you get a credit card at 30% interest. And you can't get out. If you don't pay, we're going to garnish here. The IRS is going to come here, put you in the street. So we're locked down with this credit, we citizens of the United States. That's how they got African and other countries locked down in the IMF and World Bank. You got to use the US dollar in trade. Now, you see all these names? here at the Brentwood. You're going to see it the next time we present. You're going to see the same name company on the UN. You're going to see the same on the League of Nations. That's why they don't teach it. They don't want you to understand what they've been trying to hold on to. Now, I'm going to conclude now. The last page, we can deal with education, with a question and answer, and it's on the petrodollar. After we break and come back with question and answer, I'm going to read what the petrodollar is and why this is what is precipitating the U.S. down. When you want to know why they're down. So we formally ended the presentation here, and there's one last piece we're going to deal with after question and answer. So Ray, however you want to structure and the individuals here, the break, question and answer, and we come back. So now you got the knowledge. We're going to deal with this because this is what is important.
Okay, so we're gonna have a 2-minute break, then we're gonna come right back, or you want
Whichever way you want to do it, that you want the time, the best use the time. We have one more piece, and then we can use the time, question and answer. What is this about? Why is this? Why is this important? So we presented the material. Now we want everybody to think about how does it refer, how do I fit in? How does Africa fit in?
All right, so we want to take a break, or
Let's take a break, 5 or 10 minute break. We read the petrodollar question and answer, and people put in what they. It's a time for the individuals here to say what they want to say about it. I said what I want.
Okay, we're gonna have a 2-minute break and then a 5-minute break. Then we're gonna come back.
And I said, if those who are interested in the handouts, we can mail it to you directly, or you contact Ray, and he'll be able to. We can take copies and send it through the internet. But you have topics already. You have the UN, you have Brentwood, you have what you call this particular, and I'm going to repeat it over and over so that you can go online, pick up the article, and read it for yourself. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. As we winding down, I'm going to repeat again. If you're not able to do any research on any of the topics we dealt with, I'm going to read the title where you can go online and you should get this article. Study. And let it sink in. Why? Because if there's anything that I feel you should follow up with, it's this particular article and this particular study. And I'm going to read it 3 times because it relates directly to you. Not what happened in the founding of the UN. Not what happened at Brentwood, but something that affects you every single day. You may not be able to control it, but at least you will know about it. And it's a study. It's called U.S. Congress. Literally, Literally, does not care what you think. Second time I'm going to read it, and third for those who want to hear it or take it down. U.S. Congress literally, Literally, doesn't care what you think. Last time, U.S. Congress literally doesn't care what you think. Now, in your handout, you have this picture. This picture came off of one of the books that were produced by the author on the Battle of the Bretton Woods. The Battle of Bretton Woods. The battle, why they call it a battle? Because the United States was now positioning itself to dominate the globe economically. And it is taking away the leadership from Britain because Britain lost its colonies. So the United States is saying in Bretton Woods, what do you have to remember about Bretton Woods? Bretton Woods is when the United States and Britain sat down and said, the world is not going to use the British pound anymore. It's going to use the U.S. dollar. And the United States is going to be the strongest economic country in the world. Why it's going to be the strongest economic countries in the world is because of the result of World War I and World War II. So what is Dr. Lewis talking about? You go back and you find at the turn of the century, 1900, if you were to categorize any number of countries, take what was the Soviet Union, conglomerate of countries, China, big China, the colonist countries that got rich off of raping Africa, England, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Portugal, they all became rich from colonialism, primarily Africa. So if you take those countries and you put a set of categories, who has the biggest military, the biggest navy, the biggest industrial base. 1900, the United States was ranked 8 or 9. There were at least 7 or 8 countries in 1900 that if you use military, economics, global trade, any number of criteria, the United States would come up number 8 or 9. There were 7, 8, or 9 countries that were stronger than the United States militarily, economically, and politically.
In 1900.
From 1900. When does the United States become the dominant country? From 1900 to 1944, 40 years? Why? Because of 2 world wars. The Germany, France, England, the Netherlands, Italy, Russia, Japan, all of these countries fought wars that depleted themselves, and the United States by default rose as the dominant country only because the other ones were beaten down as they were fighting these wars. That's how the United States became dominant. And Bretton Woods was that meeting between the United States and the UK for the United States saying to Britain, I'm number 1 now. So what was Bretton Woods? Conference call by the United States and UK. They met in Bretton Woods up in New Hampshire, and they're going to talk about, what did they say? They're going to talk about, it was nothing about that most of the African, Asian countries were colonies. And what was the Bretton Woods? How do they state it and what it was? That Bretton Woods, when you see this, let's take this page, you see these 2 men, these are the 2, one from Britain and one from the United States, who would negotiate the dominance of U.S. over Britain. At this time, every African country was what you call African country was a colony. They didn't participate in this. Almost every Asian country was a colony under the Europeans. Almost every Central and South American country was a colony under the Europeans. And the Caribbean. So when you look at the Bretton Woods, the UN creation, that's United States, Britain, and Europe. You were colonized at that point. So you didn't have anything to do with it. So the Bretton Woods, these represent the United States and Britain. I took some copies and made, and you will see here, what you see here is some of the shots of the delegates. They're all white. Almost all the delegates are white, all the people making decisions. That's the purpose of showing you the Bretton Woods. The conference, the Bretton Woods Conference, was set up by the United States and Europe to do what? To establish the rules, commercial relationship among the United States, Canada, and Western Europe. They didn't include Africa, Asia, nobody else, because you were colonies. It was the creation of the World Bank and IMF. Those are the two most important things. So I took the picture to show you the people who set up the IMF and World Bank that had most of the African and Asian countries locked down were these white folks from Britain and the United States. And then the second page, you will see the white folks, Roosevelt, the British, all white people, running the world. 1941. Africa's colonized, Asia is colonized, Central and South America. So from 1944 to this day, you have 95 countries. And most of these countries are building to break away from the United States and the European IMF and World Bank. That's the connection. Okay. Let me tell you the petrodollar. Let me tell you what the petrodollar is as we compete. And so you will understand the dilemma, the financial dilemma that the United States is in right now. When you hear Trump's inaugural speech, and when he's talking after that, he's concentrating on saying, we're going to make America great again. Not by selling products, because the United States doesn't make products. Most of what you buy every day and what is traded throughout the world, the United States doesn't make it. The United States contributes less than 5% of the global production. Everything that's made on earth by country, only 5% is made by the United States. They used to make almost 60 or 70. That's the hit. That's the position the United States is in. So Trump is going to make the United States great again. How? We're going to tariff and squeeze Canada, because he feels that Canada can't fight back. America, he is going to tariff and squeeze Mexico. We're going to tariff and squeeze the Suez Canal. We're going to go and force and try to take Greenland from, I forgot the name of the country, that small country that so-called owns Greenland. All that area up there used to be indigenous people. Somebody remind me who owns Greenland. It'll come to us. That's what he said. When you hear him talk, he doesn't say, we're going to go back to stealing from Africa. Them days are over. The main source of the theft was Africa. Okay, World War I. World War II is over. Where did the copper, the iron, the steel, the food, where did it come from that the United States could rebuild Europe? Stolen from Africa.
Denmark.
Denmark is the owner of Greenland. Where did the United States get the material from to rebuild Europe? Stolen from Africa. Where did the United States corporation get the natural resources, minerals and stuff to rebuild a modern industrial country called South Korea? Stolen from Africa. Where did the United States get the natural resources to build up a strong, developed Japan? Africa. Where did the United States get the natural resources, technology to build up Taiwan? So Japan, United States rebuilt Japan, rebuilt Taiwan, rebuilt South Korea, rebuilt Europe from the natural resources stolen from the African. They didn't buy a damn thing from the African. To try to belittle Africa that has 65% of the world's arable land. Now, as I conclude, you could see where France and Germany and the rest of them, they were around the world stealing from everybody, but primarily what you see in Europe came out of Africa stolen. So how did the United States get into Africa? So the Bretton Woods here. So what the American head man said to his French cousin, we had World War I, and the British had to pay their white cousins, America, in gold for their help. World War II, Britain didn't have any gold to pay the United States. So the white cousins of the United States said to Britain, hey, there's a way you can pay me, but I ain't got no more gold. He says, don't you control the natural resources of Kenya? Yes. Don't you Britain, control the natural resources you stealing out of Ghana? Yes. You stealing out of Nigeria? Yes. You stealing out of South Africa, Zimbabwe? You stealing from all the African countries. So those African countries that you've been stealing Britain from, I want a cut of each of those countries to pay me for what you owe me in World War II. So that's how United States corporations got into Africa. The United States didn't build a damn thing in Africa. Nothing. But their corporations got in because the British had to give them a cut of the gold and other resources from Ghana. They gave United States corporation got a cut of Nigeria. They got a cut of Kenya. They got a cut of, so that's how United States got it. And the United States never had colonies. It's a lie. They had Liberia. United States attended the Berlin and Brussels conference. You look at online, you see the three who were there. They sent a delegate. Why the United States sat down there with the, when you look at the Berlin and Brussels conference, you see a bunch of white people sitting. And then you see the list of names of who participated. And the United States participated. They sent a delegate over there. Because they wanted Liberia, they went and okayed, supported, and assisted Belgium to take the Congo. They rubber stamped and assisted Germany to take Namibia, and they took Liberia. So they were right there. Russia sat down at the Berlin and Brussels conference, didn't take anything out of, no colonies out of Africa. Pardon me?
Who did not take anything from Africa?
Russia. When you look, you'll see a list, they give you the list of 14 countries that sat down. The Russians sat down, but they didn't take any people. The Berlin-Brussels conference was the Europeans were all over Africa killing us with the guns. That's how they conquered us. And they were fighting with each other about territory. So the Berlin and Brussels conference was called by the Germans saying, look, we got to stop fighting with each other, killing each other over the theft of Africa. Let's sit down and carve it up so we can steal in peace. You take that piece, that's what it was about. Who's going to carve up or who's going to get one? And at that conference, you see the list. Russia sat down, but did not take a colony. The Turks, Ottoman, sat down, but didn't take a colony. United States took a colony. So when you see who are the major colonists, you will see Spain, you'll see England. The two major European countries that got most of Africa was Britain first and then France. And then the rest of them was the tail on. But you don't see United States there as official member of being a colony. But they got access to the vast natural resources from Africa by stealing from British colonies. Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, Zimbabwe. That's how they got. So United States is always so. And I remind people that United States fought against the African liberation. Russia helped you, China helped you, and Cuba. And who were they fighting? They were fighting the Europeans backed by the United States. So when Trump says, we're going to make America great again, we're going to rip off Panama, Colombia, Mexico, Cuba, not Africa. Those are the countries he said we're going to try to rip. He didn't name Africa because they don't have, they're still stealing. The stealing is being cut down. They don't, why didn't he mention Africa? Because which countries are now in, which countries have the Africans beginning to turn to help them in their development? Africans gave the technology to the Americans and Europeans, and that technology brought what you call modern technology. So we don't just accept it, we started the technology. Yeah. But there's no country in Africa that is going to the United States for anything. If you want something built, you use your own technician. China will come in to build, Russia will come in to build Turkey. So you take the Burkina Faso. When they kicked out the British and the French, the Sahel nation, they immediately went to China for military weapons. They immediately went to China for training. Then they brought in the Russian for that type. Then when they need drones, they bring in Turkey. Then when we analyze in more detail, the African countries are doing business with each other. They're not doing business with the United States. The United States has no business there. All they're doing is corporations stealing. So he didn't mention Africa. He didn't mention Asia. He didn't mention the Middle East. Because they ain't got no more control over there. They're out of there. In another day, we'll talk about Israel is the biggest military base of the United States.
Question is?
Okay, so let me read the petrodollar, then we end it. Petrodollar is critical. After the Bretton Woods, everybody in the world had to use the dollar. Well, the African wasn't using the dollar, they were colonized. The Asians, the only one using the dollar was the United States and Europeans among themselves. They told you right here. The whole conference was what? The monetary system. Established the rules in commercial relation between U.S., Canada, and Europeans. They told you clearly, this has not a damn thing to do with these people of color. This is our thing because we got colonies. So this is the petrodollar. After Bretton Woods, United States dollar had to be used. 1944. And the reason they used the dollar was because they agreed, the Europeans agreed, not the African. The Europeans agreed, well, let's use the dollar. Why? Because the American says we got the largest reserve of gold. That every $35 of the paper money, you can take out 35 of our paper US dollars and we'll give you an ounce of gold. And so the French and the Europeans says, okay, we'll let your dollar be the currency, show us the gold. United States put out the pistola. You don't need to see the gold. You understand how this thing works? So they say, I understand.
You showed some gold already.
Okay? Nobody ever saw the damn gold to back it. So remember, from 44 to up to African liberation in the 70s and 80s, from 44 up to the 1917, from 44 to 1970s, we're all colonies. We only breaking away. The ages, so just remember from 44 to about 1970, Africa, Asia, Central America are still colonies of the Europeans. Okay. So the French and the other people say, you know, the United States is in the Vietnamese War and they're printing out more dollars. They're printing so many more dollars, but they don't have enough gold to back it. So France asked, give me my gold back. I'm not going to use it. So when the Europeans and Canadians, remember all this business is done between US, Canadian, the Europeans, African, Asian don't have a damn thing to do with it. Okay, so when the Europeans didn't trust United States, they stopped trading with United States. So the French said, give me back my gold. They give it back. The German, everybody started asking for their gold back. The United States didn't have it, so the United States said, we're going to go off the gold standard. They defaulted. United States defaulted.
What happened to the gold from the World Trade Center?
You know how, you see when they went into Gaddafi, they stole all his gold, they stole all of the silver, they raped your country. Okay, so 1971, United States went off the gold standard. So the United States had to say, how are we going to get the world to use our dollar when they don't trust us because they know we ain't got the gold? So what they did was, they went to Saudi Arabia. The key to what is happening to U.S. economy now is what percentage of the world is using the U.S. dollar? Okay. So the United States defaulted, went off the gold, and in 1973, the last page, the petrodollar, they made an agreement with Saudi Arabia. I'm going to read the agreement. And this is what has been propped up the U.S. dollar to this day. And why U.S. dollar is rapidly dropping because more and more countries are not using the dollar. In other words, this country stayed rich because people had to use their dollar. You had to come to the U.S. to get dollars, and you had to give the U.S. one country, say, the United States, you want these dollars, give us car batteries. You want these dollars, send us computers. You want this. So United countries had to come to the U.S. to get the dollar to do trade, and all the United States was giving them paper dollars, and you had to give them something real. The petrodollar. This is what the petrodollar was. The petrodollar was instituted in 1973. The rule when everybody who had oil had to sell their oil in U.S. dollars. The agreement is between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. 1973, I'm reading, take me 3 or 4 minutes to finish. 1973, Saudi Arabia agreed with a gun to your head. They agreed to price and trade its oil using only the dollar. The key thing is the use of the dollar that keeps the dollar strong. But with all these countries no longer using the dollar, a lot of things that this country needs, they can't afford to pay for it with hard stuff. They used to give them dollars. So the Saudi Arabia agreed to price and trade its oil using only the dollar. Other oil-producing countries agreed to use only the dollar. Saudi Arabia agreed to ship to the United States oil for $4 a barrel. The United States agreed to provide Saudi Arabia protection from its enemies. How do we mafia by, you understand?
Today enemy, tomorrow friend.
They said, look, we're going to protect you against your enemies. Who is the enemies? Israel, etc. But you got to use you got to sell your oil in dollars. That means now everybody had to go back to the dollar. Saudi Arabia agreed to pay the U.S. for military personnel, for military bases, and military equipment. So I'm going to protect you. But you got to sell your oil in dollars. But you got to pay for all of your protection. Saudi Arabia agreed to follow the foreign policy of the United States. You have to vote with us, United States, against everybody else. The Saudi Arabia agreed to recycle its foreign earnings into the U.S. It's like they do the African now. The African countries that used to be colonies, the 18 countries, Burkina Faso, half of everything they make internationally, all the money that Burkina Faso makes with everybody else, they have to put half that money in French banks. You hear what I'm saying?
They're starting not to do it now.
Oh yeah, they start not to do it, but once when you see what they had to do, now you see the changes, then you can see the breakdown. So what they did was, so the French did the same thing to us. In order for France to stay rich, they took their 14 colonies and said, whatever, you got to send us half. If I was sitting here and I say each of you, half of all the money y'all make, you got to put in my bank. You see, I'm going to be pretty good, right? And you're going to be struggling. That's the gimmick that the French put on their colonies and the United States put on the rest of the world, forcing them to use the dollar. It's a holdup. That's how the dollar has been functioning. Hold up. They don't make anything. Saudi Arabia agreed to foreign policy. Okay, so you got to follow what the United States said. Saudi Arabia agreed to recycle its foreign earnings into the U.S. All of that profit, where do they have to do it? They have to put it in the U.S. stock market. They have to buy it, huh?
BlackRock.
That's how it got here. They had to put all their earnings, the extra earnings, not to build up their country, to buy U.S. Treasury bonds, to buy U.S. businesses, to invest in charities. Saudi Arabia buy only U.S. goods. Saudi Arabia hold U.S. currency in their banks. That's how you see what happened? And now that the people are not using the U.S. dollar, you can't get it. You can't get what you want. And this is the benefit that we in here this is the benefit that the United States got by having hundreds of billions of free money. If all of us right here in this room said that every paycheck we're going to give half our money, you're going to get pretty rich too, right? Here's the benefit to the United States, forcing Saudi Arabia to give up all of their money to keep the United States strong. They support the U.S. dollar and the economy. U.S. can run trade deficit. U.S. support military bases around the world. You keep U.S. industrialized. U.S. strengthen their trade relationship, economic growth, increase the ability to make war, etc. So it ends. So the purpose of all of this is to bring you to begin to understand. It's easy once you put the pieces of why this country was so prosperous after World War II up to now. Making wars. They went into Libya. They destroy you so you cannot be competitive. They steal your gold. They steal your silver.
It's like stripping you away and being a bully.
Well, again, you see the analogy. If the 14 French former colonies to this day have to give half the money they earned, they're already stealing from you. And then half the money you earn, you got to put in the French bank. And then when you want something, you got to explain to France how you. But you know why that's ending? because the world has changed. Before you try to do something, what do? They bomb you. They do economic sanctions.
Can't do it now.
They can't do it now. The United States doesn't make the strongest military right now. The strongest land military is Russia. Russia is beating Ukraine and all of Europe and the United States. So this showed the world, if we're a country, we said we don't need the United States. Russia, China's weapons are better, and we're going to equip ourselves. That's why do you think the Sahel nations are doing well? The first thing you have to do is have security. So now you can go to Russia, China, other countries, and you don't need the U.S. anymore. You don't have to worry about coups anymore. You don't have to worry about economic sanction because you don't buy anything from the United States. They want to sanction you. Okay. That's why Trump only mentioned Canada, Mexico, Colombia, and things. Relatively weak countries, economically and military. He didn't threaten Nigeria. He didn't say, I'm going back and put an economic. He said he's going to tariff all the BRICS. You know who the BRICS countries are? He's going to tariff Russia. The United States got 16,000 tariffs on Russia, and they're losing. You're going to put tariffs on a country that make 90% of what everybody, you're going to put a tariff on Russia, China, India, Brazil, South Africa, Iran, Ethiopia, United Arab Emirates. You're going to put a tax on Indonesia. The countries in BRICS make up 90% of what the world sells. The United States sells nothing. How are you going to threaten somebody? And nobody needs to trade. If the United States disappeared today, the world would be better. Most of the world trade is not done here. The Golden Gate Bridge, they're asking the Chinese to fix.
Ask everybody but us.
Maryland Bridge.
So I don't know, and I don't know how Trump promised the American people he's going to make them great. Manufacture. Make the best weapons. You can't. China has the biggest and strongest navy. Get no more. Russia has the biggest and strongest land army. United States, Russia's beating all of them. So who are they going to do a war on? So now Burkina Faso and the rest of them said, we don't have to worry about Russia, about United States embargo. We don't do business with the United States. We ain't got United States. We don't need anything from the United States and Europe. How you going to embargo? You can't invade us. We got a big military. We'll go through that. So the net thing is that the non-white world are now in here. One of the commentators, McGovern, is an older white man. He's Irish, Scottish, one of them. He says the world is breaking into two groups. He said on this group, you have the lily white countries. He named them. Western Europe, United States, Australia, New Zealand. Here, and he said you got the rest of the world. And most of the rest of the world are countries that these white people colonized.
I'm sure.
He's telling you straight because he don't like what the Anglo-Saxon did to his people. He's Scottish, Irish. They knocked them off.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
everybody else.
The English did.
Yeah, so he's bitter about what they did, just like I'm bitter about what they did to us here and still doing everybody. So why you keep complaining all this shit, okay? So that's what the world is. You have two major blocks. You have the United States, England, France, Italy. Let's take it. You have the UK, Germany, England, France, Italy, United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. You got that clique. They make up less than 5% of the world's economy. And then you got the rest of all of Asia, all of Africa, Most of the Caribbean, the Central and South American countries, is white against black. The colonists, the ones who killed down the indigenous people, the ones who killed tens of millions of us in Africa because they had gunpowder, and the ones that the Indians, so-called Indians out in India, and I'm in here, had an argument with the British historians, and the British historians said, Britain was here, when we English was here, suppressing that area which is now India and Pakistan, we only killed 35 million of them.
Only?
That's what they said. And the Indian historian said, you killed at least 70 million.
Twice that amount.
They killed hundreds of millions of Africans.
Of human beings.
They did millions here. And you asked the question, gunpowder, disease, and everything. Anyone? I'm finished. Question, answers, whatever else you want to do. From
Zoom audience, anybody got a question?
They're going to have to deal with the history because it ain't going away.
Question, Zoom? Anybody from the floor? All right, going once, going twice. Ladies and gentlemen, give Dr. Lewis a great big hand.
Thank you.
I believe Trust is going to come back the 19th for part 2 of Nzinga, Portugal, and the European slave trade. That'll be the 19th. I'll send the link out. Hopefully we had some rain, so the Zoom will be messing up. But thank you. Give Doc a great big hand. Thank you for the Zoom audience and the people that came out. And we're going to give yourself a great big hand.
Is that the past episodes in the chat right here for those who missed the last ones? There's a link in the chat.
No, all of the lectures from the Mackey's group.
These past episodes of B.K. William Mackey History.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
I got you.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
then
Good job, Dr. Lewis.
Pardon me?
and then Dr. Lewis is we're gonna have another almost 10 to 11 part series on the temples in Africa and those great dynasties. It's gonna be it's just gonna be excellent on the stuff that Doc has, and that's gonna be portrayed on the greatness of Africa, the mistakes and everything. So it's gonna be real good coming into 2025. No matter who's in, we're gonna be doing the same thing. So listen, Black History Month, you better do it 365 days a year, and no matter what, the Democratic Party done messed up, so all them phony balonies is coming out of the woodwork. But they a day late and $1 short. If you follow what Dr. Lewis is saying, you better save yourself, because they damn sure ain't gonna save you.
Absolutely not. I should.
And if you follow his health stuff, we're gonna do this is not gonna be on YouTube. This is gonna be live only, because they are not gonna let it on YouTube. We're gonna have a health thing. It's live only, because what Dr. Lewis is gonna be talking about, they're gonna block it, like they blocked his other stuff. He has put stuff on there about C-109, and they took it off immediately. Whatever they saying now, Dr. Lewis Ben said it, they took it off immediately. But this is going to be live only. It's not going to be on Zoom. You're going to have to come out. So thank you very much. Give him a great big hand.
I say, I repeat the link in the chat for those who came in late. I could have been in the chat.